And welcome back from that break. We are taking you now to the Blue Quest University College conference room for our special conversation on International Women's Day.
You are warmly welcome to Blue Crest University, and this event is being also put together by CEO Advocacy Group. And I'm excited to be hosting this edition of International Women's Day, #Break the Bias, on the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Future. Ghana currently is placed at 117 that is countries making the effort to close the gender gap. Looking at about 152 countries, we're still really lagging behind, and we can't actually pat ourselves on the back yet. And for us as a country, we would need to push the frontiers to actually create a lot of closeness when it comes to the opportunities that men have. Women should also have the same opportunities. I'm here doing this discussion with a different kinds of women that's based on exactly what they are doing on different fronts. Right to my left is Hajia Amina Adam. Hajia Amina Adam is actually the CEO for Upsc. She's also has some forex bureaus, some marts. She's a big woman. And then I also have right beside her Professor Goski Alabi. Professor Goski Alabi also is in academia and also has worked a lot in international circles. Right by her is the CEO for Jobaman, who is also Mrs. Nimo Triku. And then, of course, Madam Grace Bediako. Madam Grace Bediako used to be the government statistician. She sits on several boards and also currently doing some work also with the Ghana Statistical Service. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
So, who wants to tell us their first breaking the barrier story? Who would want to go first? Prof? Since you're a professor.
My goodness. Anyway, so yes.
How did you break the barrier to become the first dean for graduate studies at UPSA?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's about believing in yourself. That's it for me. I think that since I was a little girl, my parents made me understand that I'm special, I mean, I didn't particularly grow up with my siblings who were then living in a big story building in an elitist community where they go to school in a car, driven in a car to all those big schools. For some reason, I lived with my maternal grandparents who were not well-to-do. They were very pedestrian people. And the community I lived in was full of women who were into very serious business. If I say serious business, they were fishmongers. You know, they wake up by 4 a.m., the vehicle is parked at a square somewhere in that community, and then they take their smoked fish very early to Makola to go and sell, and by 7 o'clock they're back, and then by 10 they are back to the fishing harbor to bring fish. But these women knew that they had to change the lives of their children, give them better education so they could do the things that they could not do. And that's why I sometimes ask myself, what actually makes the difference? Because these are very, very hard-working women who I would also call career women, right? But then they didn't have that confidence in themselves. The difference for me was that my parents, particularly my father, kept telling me that you're special. You have a special assignment to fulfill, and no one else can replace you. Even if they do the same things, they can never be you, Goski. And I grew up with that mentality, believing in myself. It didn't matter how I looked like, tall or short or beautiful or light skin or dark, I am Goski.
Wow.
And
I like that.
yes.
I like that.
And people would talk about the way she walks.
Yeah.
Ne wehechon, ne fionokochon, you know. But because I had that confidence in myself, those kind of noises didn't affect me. You know, I didn't care about the noise. I'm Goski, you know. And when you talk, in my mind, I say to myself, why don't you just give them a little more to talk about?
Dr. Grace, what about you? How did you break the bias? You have continually worked in a male-dominated space, maths and statistics, and taking it even to the UN level, where you have led in the writing of about 2 or 3 manuals for the UN in the area of population studies and statistics. That is huge. How did you get there?
Again, like Goski, it's from childhood. I think that's where everything starts.
That's true.
And I've come to realize that we are all gifted. Everyone has a talent. Everyone has an area of strength. Mine was arithmetic. Then we grew into maths. When I was in school, it was arithmetic, right? And I always remember one particular teacher. He wasn't my teacher. He was one class ahead of me. So he was teaching class 6. I was in class 5. But he brought, for afternoon classes, he brought us all together. And then we did tests. And I would excel. I would be ahead of both classes. And he started saying, this, my girl, nobody can challenge her. And that was enough for me. So I always had to do my best. The other thing is also another principle, which is biblical. And that is, whatever you do, do it with all your might. Yeah. And do it heartily. And see, you find we try to do a little to get by. But that is never enough. Doesn't get you there. The thing is, if you have a little more room to perform, do it without considering who is watching, who will commend you, what you will get. A lot of times we pull back because we think that suddenly we wake up, someone is cheating us. Nobody is. Do what you can. The rewards always come. And I think that is, for me, the big push. And once you follow that, I said maths, once you follow that, and everything seemed to happen. You know, when we were growing up, we had the common entrance, and so my grades were pushed up by maths, and then you have O-levels, and my grades are pushed up because it's all averages. In the end, it's all averages. Yeah. So the ones you do well in will push you up, and you compete with others. And that is how it happened. And then also, in our group, because you were doing O-levels, A-levels, your strengths were what pushed you to the next level and to whichever class. So I had to take maths for O-level, and then maths at A-level, and then statistics and the university. And I remember at the university, there was a cousin who looked at me and said, Grace, why are you taking maths? You know, for FUE, first university exam, you should do something like sociology and I said, but that I can't do. You see, I would fail it flat, because
you knew your strength.
Yes, because at that time also I hadn't really developed reading and the passion for reading. It came later. So for me, all those subjects, I would have flubbed in. But give me maths, give me anything logical, I will deduce. I think that's it.
Hadia, you work in a super male-dominated space, selling oil products. So you own AMSA Oil. How many women are in that space in any way, in any case? And of course, how have you survived in the space?
I would say it's not an easy space to operate in, but I have survived because I think all my life where I've worked, I happen to find myself in the midst of men, and that really built my confidence, and that also made me understand that I'm capable of doing whatever they can do. And I was never afraid to venture any male-dominated business at all. Because in our space, I think from upstream, midstream, and downstream, we have very few women in that space. If you come to the BDC level, I think we have just about 2 women who own BDCs. Yes. And for us at OMC level, we have about 14.
Out of about
it's
200?
Just 200. So
wow.
It's just a fraction of this. So that's how hard the space is for you to venture. But finding myself in the midst of men, working with them, getting to understand them, was never a challenge for me to venture into that space.
You will tell us later about the business and how you're faring. And now, Hilda, tell us how a young woman like you now is the CEO for a company like Jobberman. How did you get there? You started off as a marketing executive in the company, and then you rose through the ranks to the very top. Tell us how you have risen and what from your past has helped in making you get there.
Okay. So when I was listening to Doc and Prof, I was saying, okay, your story mine is a bit different. I think that my mom sort of inspired me to be able to hear. When I was growing up, she always said, you can do this, yeah. And I always wanted to compete with the boys in class, always to do better. And I think that in my career, I've been privileged to work with I've been in also male-dominated areas. So I've worked in IT sales, and you know that IT is like mainly men. And you have to go in and learn and prove your worth. But I've also been privileged to have very good women to look up to. I think for me, the CEO of Main One, who founded the company, was a woman, and she did it all by herself. I've happened to have great mentors who were women that I looked up to them. I was like, if this woman can do this, I can. And it never prevented me from, rubbing shoulders with the men and with the boys to be able to get to where I want to be. And I think that in Jobberman, I think I'm the first female CEO for Jobberman has had. In the past, it's been all men. And I started I joined Jobberman as a head of sales. And I think that my work stood out for me because I was not afraid to take any decisions. I wasn't afraid to do, because I felt I've seen women do it and achieve. Why can't I do it? What's different? So then I was able to work hard. And I think during the time they looked and they said, you know what? We feel you are well positioned to take up this role. And at that time, when they offered me the role, I was like, oh, no, I'm not interested. But it's like, you were the one for it. I mean, and I feel like from my past and having to work with a lot of great women who motivate me. So, because sometimes when you don't see people do it, you feel like you can't. And I was funny enough, I've had good female bosses. People are saying some female bosses can be very terrible. Yes, there have been some, but I've had really good female bosses who will push you, who will motivate you, who will let you know that it can be done. And I mean, even in my organization now, the MD of Jobs, who takes care of all the other companies, she's a woman. So you can achieve, and I think that's what has helped me to break the bias. Yeah.
Well done, ladies. To my next issue, how do we replicate these kinds of stories from the various places that you work, even to the bigger stage? When we came, all of us said we admire Dr. Grace from where she sits and for all the work she has done. I will say that she's one of the few women in this country who started leading in the spaces where women have never been there. Doctor, how have you inspired other women in the statistical service, for example?
It's a tough one.
Yes.
It's easy when you know people know about you and are admiring you from afar. I think, let me go biblical again, because there's something that really challenges my thinking. And that is, I found Moses led Israel very well. And when he left, he got Joshua. But after Joshua, there was nobody. And really, this is about legacy and how we groom people to take our places. And there are two determinants. One on the performer's side, and the other is who is willing to do it.
That's true.
Now, when I think of Hilda's situation, you are inspired. But what happens is sometimes people watch you and say, this is too hard. I won't commit to it. and so you are left on a ledge, because here you are, you want people to come to where you are, and you're trying to help them, but they see how hard you have to work, and they don't commit to it. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that it takes a lot of hand-holding. In statistical service, it's not only the women, but I find that the people who were willing to work hard and work with me, they're all very hard workers, good workers, perform, even now as I watch. Yeah. So it is about each and every one making that determination that I want to be there.
Yes.
And it will take hard work. And then most leaders want people who will work hard with them, who will support them. And once you position yourself that way, you will get the help to break through the barriers. So we need our girls to really not just admire from afar, but come to believe that if this one has done it, I can do it. But it will take the same hard work, and therefore I must commit to it. So we need to work with ourselves to aspire to desire that position, so that we can counter anyone who is telling them, but why do you have to work so hard? You are just a girl, you will get married, and so on. We have to educate them to understand that things have changed, and that we all need to be out there to perform, so that even the country gets the benefit of the 50% plus women in the country.
I will still stay on you because you sit in the place of policy, coming from the institution that you have chaired before, become Director General for, that's the NDPC, and you currently sit on the board. The figures show that we aren't doing too well at closing the gender gap. From where you have sat, in the boardrooms and the board meetings you have sat in, exactly how are we performing when it comes to policy? 10-year development plan, 20-year development plan, deliberate attempt to want to close the gap from policy perspective.
The truth is that we haven't committed to closing the gap. The statistics show, and we don't even do the statistics well enough to show. What I mean is we collect the data, all right, but we are not pursuing the knowledge and information about what the data are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's from there that you can draw your policy directions. So I go to Beijing, back to Beijing. And every time I'm talking of gender statistics, it comes up. Gender statistics hasn't happened. And yet that Beijing document is one document that really, if we were to take, and it's the H2, take it and say that as a statistical organization, we are going to move all our systems to respond to that. Then data will be gender sensitive, and then it speaks for itself. See, when you present data in the way that communicates, it speaks for itself. And then those who really want to do something about it will be challenged to do something about it. So it's not clear how we are assessing whether our programs are working. You can always try to do something. You set policy, you set directions. But then, is that it? A year, 2 years, 5 years, are we asking, how far does this take us? Did we achieve what we sought? And if we didn't, or we did it halfway, what should we change to upscale the direction we are going in? And so we need to take a step back, look at what we seek to achieve, and work towards achieving it. And when we see we haven't done enough, then let's do something different.
Prof. Goski, you sit also in a space of leadership, and so consistently you have taken a look at our leadership atmosphere. And with what Dr. Grace is saying, I'm sure if we had several women at the helm of affairs, probably the conversation would have been different. The latest statistic from listed companies on the Ghana Stock Exchange indicates that all listed companies, about 75% women sit on boards. Yet, we just represent a handful of 25%. Yes, we're present there, but just 25% of the whole chunk. How do we find more women in leadership so that some of the challenges Dr. speaks about can be dealt with?
Thank you very much. I think that leadership at the public level starts with leadership at the personal level. If you cannot lead yourself, you can't lead other people. And so first of all, we should help people to discover who they are, their strengths and their weaknesses. And once we have done this, we should echo into our young ladies and our women in general that making it and leading in life is all about fulfilling your purpose. If you do not know what you live for, you cannot go and lead anybody. Mm-hmm. So if we can have a kind of guidance and counseling program at the very young age, right from primary school level all the way to the tertiary level, so that people can know what their strengths are, what they live for, and begin to press hard on that, to work hard in that area, and ensure that at least at the end of the day, they are making a difference in that area. You would see that automatically we will begin to find ourselves in places where we can lead, because our contribution is going to speak for us. I find that a lot of the time we do not know how to identify the talents that we have or young ladies have. As Dr. Grace said, it is about knowing your talent. And when you find that people are doing things with difficulty, it means that it is not their strength. It is not their talent. Yes, they could do it, but they may not be able to excel there because they have not been called by God to fulfill in that space. So the first thing is for us to identify the talents of our people, our women. Now, once we have that, talents do not take us to the boardroom. They don't. Talent will not make you a star. What makes you a star is your abilities, what you can do. So we need to develop our talent into real abilities to be able to see ourselves at the boardroom and make a difference. Again, I give the example of what Dr. Grace said and my own personal example. Somebody said, why don't you go do some sociology or something? But it is not her strength. Her strength is mathematics. And she had developed her skill, her ability in math. And because it is her calling, a talent which had been developed into an ability, she could become the government statistician. The same applies to me. So we need to do that. And I think that lastly, when we have developed these abilities through education, through training, because that makes a whole lot of difference. The next thing is we need the right social capital.
And I'm going to come to that because just this Saturday, the whole of Ghana, you were selected to be at Obasanjo's 85th birthday, and you were one woman from Ghana, if not the only Ghanaian, who actually spoke at that high-level birthday party. So how do you put yourself out there and be attractive to such circles? Because it is important, and whatever you said there was taking hook, line, and sinker. And of course, there are certain actions that are going to be taken on exactly what you have said. I noticed that it's a big challenge for women. How do you put yourself out there, staying relevantly visible?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that, like my colleagues have already said, when I was growing in the academic space, I had some women, great women, to look up to, like Professor Ramadi, because I also did science. My first degree was in chemistry. And in the university, I did physics, chemistry, mathematics, but I specialized in chemistry. So there were women in science that I was looking up to. So when I became an academic, one of the things I did was to interview some of them, because then I was going to present a paper at the Oxford Round Table. And I felt that I needed the inputs of these women. So when I spoke to them, one common thing came up. I asked Professor Rama Adi of blessed memory, I said, you were a head of department. Why didn't you become a dean or a vice chancellor? And she said to me that when it got to the time of becoming a dean, you know, it's all about voting. I said, yes. She said, but the HOD, it's about what you can do and your qualification. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, when it got to the deanship, the men ganged up against me. And the other two leading women who I had spoken to, a similar theme came up. So I started asking myself two things. First of all, I think that often we do not know the requirements of the space or environment in which we are playing. And it is important that if you have to navigate your way to the top, you know the requirements of that environment. The next thing is we needed to understand the power dynamics of the environment, which meant that we need to understand the politics of the environment. And politics is very important. Even at the household level, there is politics. And we need to know how to play it. But the third and most important was that we needed the right social capital. See, it takes your qualification to get to a point. But for that door to be opened for you, you need people. And it takes people to keep you in that room. And that is what we miss, that right from the day we are born to the day we die, it's about people. Yeah. So we need to learn how to build our social capital. And most importantly, we need to know how to project ourselves. I mean, when I stand up to talk, for people to note me at the conferences, it's not just about what I'm speaking about, it's also about how I look. Plain language. It's about my appearance. And next, it's about my personal disposition. It's about how I'm carrying myself around. So as women, we need to build the skills to attract the kind of social capital that we need. If the people that surrounds you are amateurs, you think and behave like an amateur. If the people that surrounds you are professionals, you would think and behave like a professional. If the people that surrounds you are leaders at a certain level, you're going to develop that mindset and behave like them and get there. And surely they will hold your hand, open the door for you, and keep you in that room.
Thank you. Before we had this fantastic discussion, I was with Haji Amina. And that was because Hajia has worked within the mining, the oil and gas space, stayed within her space, and not really gone into media before. And so I felt that I needed to make her really comfortable for this conversation. Hajia, you're comfortable now, right?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Tell me about this male-dominated space and the wranglings that go on, the bullying that goes on within the oil and gas space, and how you have survived it, to moving from someone who used to take fuel from others to now owning your own OMC.
It's never been easy for me, as I said. Listening to Doc and Prof, my story it's similar to what they are saying. The bullying, it's there till today, and nothing will stop the bullying because they felt this space don't belong to a woman. That's it. And to be able to survive in it, you have to have a strong heart to be there. It's never been easy for me, but finding myself in the midst of males from beginning, it's never be a kind of, I'll be intimidated or something of that sort. One thing about me is like, you can't intimidate me. No. No. I
like that.
I don't give chances, not at all. I don't. Then I make sure I move with you. I believe in myself and then my integrity. You know, I have values and then my integrity, I put it to you. So when you come and you are dealing with me, you will see it at a point in my line because I make sure I do the right thing. I do things right. And I look up, like, from here, where do I move to? So from here, this is the next step. Never give up. Be strong. You can be there. And with their support, some of the men really admire the strength that I move in with it. But the intimidation, it's there because you meet people who are ready to help you, admire you as a woman, and support. But there are others too, they feel, no, this space doesn't belong to you. So then it's like more or less you are wasting your time. But for me, it's not. So I was retailing, I moved from the retailing gradually, but I took my time to grow organically. There was never a rush in whatever I was doing. I took my time to understand the job, understand it well, and then fix things right, have a very strong team that I work with. Then, so with that, when you are coming thinking that, oh, the challenges, you're going to like bring in intimidation of something like that, you would at a point realize that no, it won't work. Yes. I am calm, but yes, on the quiet, I am confident on whatever I'm doing. Yes. So you look at me from afar like, oh, this woman, she's meek. But you don't take my meekness into granted. Because
now tell us
when
how
you get closer.
You moved from running a Forex bureau to now running an oil company. What made you think that this oil company or oil business will work? And so let me attach that to the business. Because sometimes my observation is that, like you said, women are very calculative and take very careful steps. Mm-hmm. So for you to move from Forex Bureau now to oil and gas should have taken you some bold steps.
Yes, it really did. I calculated my steps, as you said, really well, because I had been in the Forex Bureau space for long. So at a point, I was thinking, oh, fuel stations, I never took my time to do a research today, but I have always would want to be in that space. And I never see, because I ask, oh, is there a woman in that space? I did 1 or 2 research. This was 12 years ago. And I realized that there are not many women. I mean, you don't even hear about any woman. So then I took that decision. We have this property. I said, look, this property is there. It's more or less like an abandoned property. So why don't I demolish and build a station? Then I proposed that to my husband. With his support, he said, are you sure it's going to work? I said, don't worry about it. I would find out if it's possible. So then I had to move to EPA to go and find out, is it possible for me to get a permit? They said, oh, why not? It's possible. Then I said, okay, then let me move to the District Assembly office. I went there. Is it possible to rezone this property from residential to commercial? They said, oh, it's possible. Then I said, okay, if that's the case, let's do the demolition. So that's how it started. And the rest
is history.
I mean, yeah.
Thank you, Hajia Amina Adam. So Hilda, where you sit, you constantly get information on jobs, which jobs are available. So my first question is, men and women, who takes what?
Well, for the jobs available, I think there's a wide range of jobs. I think it's what you want to venture to be in. I think there are some roles that women feel, oh, this is like a man's territory. But there are roles where when women go in, they excel really well because of attention to detail and a few other things. So for the roles, I feel that they are available. I think women tend to go for customer service role, maybe a little bit of sales, a little bit of admin, and don't want to challenge themselves to do other stuff because they want something that's safe, I think, basically. But there are roles there that women can challenge themselves to do. So even sales, women are afraid to go into sales because some of it, you have to wrangle with the men to do it. If they are going for a business dinner at night with the customer, are you in a position to be able to do that? You know, if they're, they can say, oh, we are going to meet and close this deal in the bar. Are you able to go and do that? So you need to position yourself to be in the space and say, this is what I want to do, and put in your work. And you can always strike a balance. I always say, it's not all the meetings that you can go, but there are positions where you can show them that I can. When they say dinner, I said, I'll be there, and you be there. If it's 7 o'clock, you have to make the necessary childcare arrangements, make the necessary what you're supposed to be, and be there, and show them that. So they can't book meetings knowing that, oh, when we book a 6 o'clock meeting, this girl can't make it. So you make your necessary arrangements, making sure that for whatever job you're positioning yourself to be, you'll be able to do it. And now there are so many jobs that women can do. There are roles where women are specifically being looked for, like for engineers. We have customers who say, I want female engineers only. You know, there are roles where people will say, I want a woman for that role. And I think that women, sometimes we struggle to fill some of these roles because if you look, most of the roles have men. So we will have to do, so what we do is we form partnerships with the universities, form partnership with organizations where we can position some of these roles for women. But I think the roles are opened. It's up to what you want to do. And if you put yourself out there, you'll be able to do. And you always need to bring value. What are you bringing to the table? It's not only about your looks. You know, it's not only about what you have, but when you go into the meeting, you need to show the men that you're also bringing something to the table. You have value, you're resourceful, you're bringing something, and it's not only about what you look like or the designer bag you're having, but it's also what you have up there intellectually to be able to contribute to what people are doing in the job market. Yeah.
Tell me, all of you, and this question goes to all of you. You have worked in roles that men have worked in. How hard have you worked to prove to the men who probably employed you that they have not made a mistake in getting you into the job? I'll start with Dr. Grace first. The first woman statistician for Ghana, and you had to work so hard, right?
Yeah. I worked hard not to prove anything. I worked hard because that's who I am. Mm-hmm. As I said, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. I had an experience at the UN which sealed my resolve. You see, one day, I was working with a team. We worked very hard. The document had to go out. I had been reading it, and I was tired of reading it. I said, it's okay. You two read it. And it went, and it was, it was an expert group meeting, so people from different countries. And that was the first time. And I would see this mistake. The people were polite, but it was horrible. From that day, I would read everything if it's going in my name. And so it became part of me to do whatever it took to get things out. It wasn't always easy, but you had to find the time. So being the first female government statistician, big deal. It's a position, and I could do it because I had gone through the ranks and I had gone to international level. I'd advised countries on statistics, and I'd said, why not come to your own country and practice what you have been preaching? So that's how it worked.
Tell us your new role and how hard you have to work.
I think that...
Do you have to prove anything?
Sometimes. So sometimes you have to prove that because if being able to work hard means requiring to put in extra hours, it means when everybody's gone home, or it means sometimes even carrying work home to be able to do. Because I remember a story where, it wasn't a story, my son, he wasn't well. And I remember he went to, had stitch done in a hospital, and I was having a meeting when he was having a stitch done. Not because I couldn't say, but I didn't want to make excuses. I can't make it. I was like, one, you can work virtually. I have my laptop, I have my phone. What should prevent me from doing this? And I feel like you always need to put in the extra work because there's always somebody looking to have a reason not to offer you that role, or for somebody looking to have a reason not to present that opportunity to you. Oh, she has children. Oh, she won't be at work early. Oh, she'll be going on maternity leave. There's always a reason. So I feel like as women, we need to work extra hard. We need to prove that we can do it and not giving excuses, because I always say to my team that everybody has 100 reasons to be late for work. So you need to make up your mind that I need to be there, and I need to be there at this time, and you're there at that time period. So you need to put in the extra work and make sure that your word is your bond. When you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you do it with that excellence that when somebody picks up your work and looks at it, it matches. It's like they are not, and it's at the standard where everybody wants to, not like, you are also bringing yourself and putting in like an excellent piece of work to show. So then the men cannot, what they're bringing, you're also bringing, you're also bringing something to the table, and it's at par. So I think that's how I have worked to get to where I am.
Koski?
Thank you.
As dean, for the first dean for UPSA as well. So there are quite a number of firsts on around here. How did you have to work hard to really prove that you could get this done?
Well, thank you. I don't think I worked hard because I wanted to prove anything. I worked hard because that is just me. If you spoke to anyone who has worked with me closely, the person would say two things about me, probably. She's a workaholic. She's a perfectionist. Yeah. These are the two things I normally hear people say. But it's just who I am, what I have consciously made up my mind to be. So I work hard. I work till late in the night. I wake up sometimes early. My regular sleeping time is about 2 a.m. And I wake up regularly in the morning. If I have about almost all of them is they put in extra effort. The last example, at this meeting of His Excellency Obasanjo, his birthday, when the WTO Director General, Ngozi, got up to speak. And then she said, I want to share a little bit of joke about His Excellency with you. And she said, well, normally His Excellency is working around 2, 3 a.m. He doesn't sleep early. And one day the phone bell rings around 2, and he gives me work to do. And then I said to him, hey, His Excellency, sir, so why are you up this, late in the night? And then he cracked a joke and said, silly girl, don't you know that that is the time that the coups can take place? Why should I go to bed? We all laughed at it. But for me, it was very instructive in the sense that this is a man I have come to describe as the father of modern leadership in Africa. And characteristically, this is not the first person talking about his late night working hours. It tells me that many of the great men and women we see around, they don't just sleep enough. They work hard enough to make their difference through their contribution. And it is about excellence and hard work. Thank you.
Hajia, you have about 100 workers, right?
Yes.
And mostly they are men. How do you stamp your cool authority to make sure that work is being done even though you're a woman leading?
Thank you, Odilia. Back to what Prof just said about this example that you shared with us. I'm surprised. I'm indeed privileged to be in this panel and to hear some of the stories. Because I don't sleep. But I've never heard this story that great people don't sleep. Today is my first time hearing this, and I'm so impressed. It means I'm not hurting myself. I'm doing something right. Thank you very much, Prof, for sharing this. Back to your question.
Yes.
It's not been easy, managing over 100 workers, and majority of them are men. But I work with a good team, and my team really appreciates me being a female leader. As to why, they can tell, I don't know. But I'm able to relate to them so well to the extent that you will never know who is the boss. There's nothing like a boss in our settings. It's teamwork. We work together. I listen to each and every one. I give them a listening ear. You bring your suggestion. Okay, if it's a good thing, yes. Let's see, what do you think? But I would always ask if it's the 5 of us, and then you bring the suggestion. Then I'll ask Doc, what do you think? Then I'll ask Hilda. I make sure we all understand what we are what the person puts before us. I will say, I endorse it. What about the rest of you? Oh, I endorse it. So that kind of relationship has really helped me being a female leader among all these men. The challenges are quite few. There are some few instances where you have, but I think I have an excellent team, and we do a great teamwork as well. So there's nothing like a leader, and being in the midst of men, I think when you do that way, you go with them to that extent, being diplomatic but hard in a very your own small way, you know, then things work well with all of you.
Doc, we as a country have been able to close the gap a bit when it comes to basic education, secondary. I know the quota system that was put at the university level to allow more women to come into have tertiary education. But when it comes to the area of STEM, what is the direction? I mean, I ask this because you sit with NDPC. So what's the direction, you know, for us as a country? Because transformational nations have done that through STEM, technology, specifically engineering, mathematics, and all that. Specifically, what are we doing as a country to close the gap? Because for me, it's a developmental issue.
Yeah, it is. But see, I believe that the girls have to want to do it. And because the effort is being made, the STEM program. But unlike Prof and Hajia, where they already, at home they know that they are good. At home they know that they can excel. At home they know that they should bring back good success stories to parents, and they will be happy. Then your strength can be harnessed in school. So we really require working with parents themselves, because, you know, I'm associated with a school on a different level. And one day we talked to the children why they were not doing so well in the midterms and so on. So we asked, what do you do at home? Many of the girls were helping their moms in the store. So they close, they go to the store to help. So Saturday, Sunday, they will help their moms and so on. The boys, they go to play with their friends and so on. How do we get parents to understand that this is the children's time to break through in education? How do we get them to be interested in the reports that come and encourage them that, look, you're doing well in this science. How can we help you? So it requires a different kind of parenting to support the education system. Otherwise, unless the girls hear a different story from what even in school they might hear, because the boys can put you down, especially when you are doing well, you know, in science, they can call you names. And the names are not necessarily bad because they are saying that, oh, as for you, you are like a boy, or you... And you should be proud of it, you know. Take it up and say, oh, yes, it means I have broken through. But we need to work with them because psychologically they may not be prepared to stand out. And that is it, being able to stand out. And that we don't do easily, you know. And as I was saying, for me, it wasn't strange that I was doing well. Someone said, hey, you can't challenge a girl. And so it propelled me to
You always had to do more.
Yeah. So I could not, I had to do the exercises well so that...
Your teacher will be happy.
So I think we need help from parents also.
We were having a conversation before you came, Doctor, Goski and Hilda and myself, and it was on different pay that is given to women and men in the world of work. Hilda, tell us whether this really, because Goski was wondering whether this really happens in Ghana. If myself and a man were to be going for a position, why will a company pay me less and pay the man more?
I think it happens. I think earlier on, I was having, and I was like, does this happen? I think it happens. I said, it happens, right? What it is that you be vying for the same position, and you're a man, and you're a woman, and they tend to pay the man more than they pay the woman. And it's two things. So either they feel like the man will come in and do more. Because you know what? I'll give you an example. There's a guy, men will say, can you do this job? They can't do it, they'll say yes. Even if they can't do it, they position themselves and say yes, they can, so that they are offered the role. And then they go into the role and fine. But a woman will say, I can't do it. And they wouldn't even try. So then a man and a woman will go for an interview, and the man will say things that they are unable to do in the interview for them to be given the job. A woman will play it safe and say, I can't do this, and will not position themselves to say, I can. So it usually makes men get paid better. A typical example, too, I have is that when I had a customer who I did a recruitment for, and there was a girl who came in and she was really good. So I said to her, why didn't you want to give the girl the role? And she was like, Hilda, you know what? I shouldn't say this, but when she came, she's newly married, and she'll want to have children. She'll go on maternity leave. So even though she's good, I didn't want to offer her that role, or I want to offer her less. And I was like, why is that? Because I'm also, as a business owner, he's also thinking about his business and what will happen when the woman goes on leave, that I'll have to recruit, I have to find somebody else to train. Understandably so. But it makes men be in a better position to ask for more and also get more. And I think the other thing, too, is that women... I think Microsoft. So when it comes to pay grade, I think that women technically get paid less. Not because they can't do the job, but they feel organizations feel like, oh, okay, she will need more time off work. Another reason too is that men are able to position themselves better. I think they position themselves better generally. So as women, we also need to be able to position ourselves in the place that the men do, and be able to ask for what they are asking for. And I think for organizations too, you need to have a standard. So if that role calls for 10,000 or 5,000, whether it's a man or a woman, you pay them what is due. But companies will always like to save, right? So if you come in and the man, let's say they have a mark and it's 10,000, and the man asks for 10, they will. But if the woman comes and asks for 8 or 5, they will give the woman because that's what they are asking for. But I think companies should be able to be in a position where if you ask for less and the role requires more, they give it to you. They give it to you because, that's what, if you have the qualifications, if you have the skill and you're able to perform the role. But that doesn't necessarily happen. And I think that organizations need to do more to make sure that they have a standardized salary scale where, irrespective of who it is, whether it's a man or a woman, and it doesn't need your negotiation power. And I think that's what a lot of people, you have to go in and negotiate. And the better you negotiate, the higher salary you get. And I feel like maybe women sometimes are not good negotiators when it comes to in a role. Like they feel like, they get this role and they take it. But I think organizations need to do more to be able to make sure that if a woman is doing the same role as a man, they are paid on the same bandwidth.
Goski, Doctor spoke about the fact that parents will have to step in, but I'm so sure that there's a role that educational institutions will have to play if by 2030. Exactly what is happening in the educational system now and what could be done to sort of help women in schools come out to be able to meet the standards that Hilda, for example, is talking about? I know personally we will have to work on ourselves, but what role can education also play in helping women come up, in helping women?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that to start with, there is the parity policy there, which is supposed to encourage a lot of women to get to the tertiary level. I want to use this medium to appeal to policymakers that for a very long time, the world made Africa focus more on primary and secondary education. It is time that we started focusing on tertiary education, because that is where the difference comes from. If a young lady finishes secondary school, we should find a way of ensuring that we push that young lady to go to the tertiary as much as possible. Now, we need to look at some of the things that prevent us from doing that. One, teenage pregnancy. And I think that both government and families have a role to play. If a young lady is in the secondary school and for some wrong choices, that child becomes pregnant at that secondary school, what kind of support system is there for that young lady to pull through? Do we just condemn that person and worsen the person's situation, but from home and from a national policy point of view? Because I know that for most of the secondary schools, if you find yourself in that situation, they'll throw you out.
Yeah.
And it even worsens the situation for the young women. The other thing is that if a young person got pregnant, how would the parents take it and still be able to say, yes, it wasn't what we expected, but let's still support this young person? Should she put to birth, can we take the child and encourage this young person to go back to school? It makes a lot of difference and will make a lot of difference for people. I think that when we are able to do this and we have the proper guidance and counseling in place, we will make a whole lot of difference. We need to understand that all this gender thing is about equity. It is not, for me, it shouldn't be about equality, because we are not equal. Biologically, we are different. Biologically, a man will not carry pregnancy for 9 months. No. But a woman will. So when we look at all these different physiological differences, how do we factor that into policy so that we can support people to be naturally who they are? And lastly, I would want to say that in as much as it depends on the institutions and it also depends on the, the government, more education, gender education, sex education should be put in place to support the young people in school from an early age. I know this opens, a Pandora's box, but then it is important that we educate people to know how to take care of themselves so that they can move along the space and do what God has called them to do, be what God has created them to be. I think these things are very important.
I'm not leaving you to go yet, but she mentioned issues relating to policy and how we should have a certain special regime so that if we say we really want to commit to this, then we're really staying committed. And one of the things she mentioned relates to the fact that, for me, when you go to work and you have a child, the longest time you can stay at home is 3 months. You're back, and your child finds themselves in some daycare center and all. Do we need more policies to be able to help women work well in institutions?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the support with childcare and so on, there's the other side of business. The more lenient you are, the more problems you create for the women. Because as the CEO was saying, they think of you're going to go on leave, you're going to go for 6 months, and so on. So it's not always about how long you stay at home, but what are the support mechanisms when you come to work, so that if it's a crash around where you work, it will help the woman drop in, maybe breastfeed, go back to work. So it's we need to balance both the work side and the developmental side, because the children need to be cared for at a longer time so that they develop their capacities properly, and especially psychological development and so on. So it should be balanced, and I think that we need a lot more discussion to see how best to fit it in.
I was going to ask you that when you take a look at in universities, because I had one when I was at the University of Ghana. I never went there because the whole perception was that if you went to that department, then you have something that wasn't really so cool with you. You had emotional problems or something. How can we use this department, for example, to drive more activity when it comes to...
I think that for some time being in the university, I realized that guidance and counseling was a place where people expected the students or the staff to come.
Yeah.
They didn't go out to meet them.
I mean, they couldn't, because if you have 26,000 students, who are you going to go to?
Yeah, but we can go out to meet them from the programs that we put in place. Like I mentioned, we should have systems that could help the students to identify their strengths and weaknesses. And there are tests that can help do that. For example, a child comes to the school and the system is already set to look at the child's personality. So it takes a personality test. The child takes a learning style test, for example, and then we have a personal development planning system for that child. So it's not like the one-on-one thing, but it is a system and a structure that is being implemented. It is an orientation and guidance program where they meet the ladies or they meet all the students from time to time to tell them about how they can plan their career, so forth and so on. But I want to touch a little bit on what Dr. Grace just said. Some time ago, I was reading about this issue, and I looked at what countries do and their placement in the index. And I noted that, I think it's New Zealand, if I recall very well. They are very high up on the gender thing. And what is some of the interventions? They decided to come up with paternity leave, as well as maternity leave.
Yeah.
So that if the woman is going on leave, the father of the child, if that person happens to be working, should also go on leave. But that requires some kind of data system that could help to do that. And when I read about the comments on that, the implications and the effects, one big thing that came up was that because employers became conscious of the fact that it is not only women who go on maternity leave, men also go on maternity leave or are supposed to go on maternity leave, pregnancy and childbirth did not become a disincentive. Another thing that I want to say is that when we are expecting as women and we are working, the excuses should not be too many. I mean, we give too many excuses. And today, I have to go for this engagement, and tomorrow, I have to go for this funeral, and tomorrow next, I have this other social program, and because of my child, and my child, and my child, I couldn't make it up. When we continue to do this, it becomes an issue. But lastly, let me say that the media has a big, big role to play in changing the narrative. I expected to meet today our tractor driver here, but she's not here.
On air.
The final thing I want to say is that educational policy, please, if the Minister for Education, Dr. Yao, if you are listening to us today, somebody should bring you the message if you are not listening. We need a national qualifications framework that recognizes both vocation, technical qualification, as well as academic qualification, so that if a young lady went through vocational training, that young lady can still find herself into the university and even get to PhD. If the person did technical, the person should be able to find his or himself into the mainstream. And lastly, we need the Ministry of Education to implement the prior learning qualifications framework and policy that this country has, so that our young sisters and brothers and those who were left out for one reason or the other, who have acquired some skill along the line through experiential learning, can also be given the opportunity to develop themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. That will definitely be your concluding remark. Hadia, I asked you one question when I came to you, and I want to ask it again. Tell us, if you're a woman and you have, let's say, zero investments or very little investment, and you want to come into this space, where should you start from? This space.
Thank you.
Where should you start from?
So, thank you. So, I think, did you say zero?
Yes.
Well, that's, so, if I was to start all over again with a zero account, I think I would start from a retail outlet, and retail outlet where I would start is from the pumps. Okay, I will go start selling fuel at a fuel retail outlet. That's where I'll start. Mm-hmm. To grow in it, to understand the business, create value for my employers. Gradually from there, if you do and then you create value, and then I believe in honesty and integrity. So be there. Or You can start with the sale of a lubricant, if I may say, but it all bounds down to integrity and discipline. Grow in it, climb up gradually. Don't be in a rush, because a lot of times what we are experiencing is that someone comes to say, we have quite a lot of ladies who now walk in with their applications, and what they want to do is to sell fuel. And they impress me. I get excited. I have quite a lot of them that I'm training, trying to develop them to the managerial level. From there, well, only God knows where they will find themselves.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tibbs. From policy to human resource, education, and of course, Hajia in the real space, telling us how you have distinguished yourselves in the various spaces. We have another distinguished woman who belongs to the Federation of African Engineering Organization. That's Engineer Carlin Buchedid. And she is actually going to be sharing with us a few things on International Women's Day. My name is Odile Ntiamwa. I head a male-dominated business department, but I'm changing the narrative in my department as well, and I'm hopeful that one day we will have more women in the various business desks and all the other spaces than men, because the men have enjoyed their time. I hope you enjoyed our show, and we will meet again next year, hopefully, to have a bigger discussion. God bless you.
Thank you.